Hey everybody, welcome back. David Dion here with special guest, the artist formerly known as Justice Curry. You should put
Hello.
you should put that on a t-shirt.
I should. I need a symbol like Prince, some
Yeah,
kind of weird
you could have
symbol.
like an old picture of you and a new picture of you, and
I
it's
like
the artist formerly known as Justice Curry. I won't even ask for a commission. A little bit
it.
late. We're a little bit behind schedule because there was a little faux pas with Restream. Because what do you want? That's what happens with Restream. Unfortunately, they um, they act really wonky at times. Been a minute since you've been on.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on again. And
Absolutely,
I like talking about toys and the toy culture, and this is kind of my happy zone. So thanks
absolutely,
again.
and that's the thing with us as well. It's like this is our sanctuary, as it were.
Yes.
We try to project that in our videos and the things that we do, so, and share it with the community and just have a good time. And no negativity, no social stuff, no politics. Just
It's
leave it alone.
smart. I should try that myself. Unfortunately, I sprinkle opinions
Mm.
into my social media stuff, and
Yeah.
it turns into dumpster fires of back and forth insanity. And I'm just like, guys, get along.
I remember that I got jumped on your, I know, going down the rabbit hole a little bit. I got jumped a few months back on one of your comment sections because of the post office, and it's like, yeah, in the post office there is a sign hanging there, no use of cell phones permitted. And
Yep.
I had mentioned that, and people were like, you don't know what you're talking about. Go to your post office and look at the sign. What do you want me to tell you?
I
But
know.
people get upset. People get upset. What are you going to do?
Yes.
But today, and thank you for joining us. Glad you could come in today. I see your real monster, your monsters back there.
Yeah, my pet monster.
Yeah, those are getting tough to find. I remember when you would find those in the thrift store back in the '90s. You couldn't get $5 for one of those.
Right.
Yeah,
And
and
now
now,
they're like $300,
yeah,
$400. And I got some custom My Pet Monster shoes
I've
as
seen
well.
those. I have
That
seen
is on
those.
rocking.
That is crazy. It's funny how all that's turned out. That's why, and I'm sure I talk about it a lot before we get on to the topic here. I had a huge collection stolen by my ex years ago, and people, oh, why don't you just go get it back? I bought all that stuff in the late '80s, early '90s when carded Star Wars figures were 3 for $1 at KB. I can't replace most of it.
Yep.
You're
Yep.
kidding me. But today's subject actually is addiction in collecting, because you can see addictive behaviors in the collecting arena, whether it's action figures, toys, comic books, vinyl records even. And I have a story about that. That's something that's happened just recently. But you know and this is something you've talked about a few times. As I
Yep.
remember, actually a while back you had a walk and talk in the woods thing
I
where you were
did.
holding the camera up, and you were at a lengthy discussion with just whoever on that
Hmm.
subject of addiction. And hey, where do you draw that line?
Of
And
course. Of course.
there's a lot of signs it can be addictive. Of
Hmm.
course, you were in the miniseries Plastic Crack, the docudrama, as it were. There you
We're
go.
representing right there.
Yeah, I've got this one.
Nice. I like that. I just did a hashtag obey recently, a meme.
But and yeah, uncarded here says comics over crack. Yeah, I'd rather have the comics, thank you. But
Yes.
absolutely, you did a lengthy discussion on that some time ago, and I was like, Justice Curry would be the one to talk to about this.
Absolutely. Yep. And obviously, and I'm going to go off on tons of tangents,
Hey,
so I apologize.
you're
Um,
fine.
but it's a subject near and dear to my heart because I've personally gone through it. Obviously, I'm going through it now, and
Hmm.
then with buying large toy collections and having heart-to-heart discussions with so many people across the years, I can see similarities with my time in law enforcement, with people that were addicted to various substance, alcohol, substance, pills, drugs, what have you, and then a correlation with our plastic crack
Yeah.
and how they blend in together. And yes, just the shameless plug, because the video that you were mentioning of me walking through the woods is I love it. And people reach out to me, weekly about, hey, that kind of snapped me out of the bubble that I'm going through, or they ask me for advice on, okay, now that I've admit that I have a problem, what next? So if anybody has never seen me before or doesn't follow my Facebook, so follow my Facebook. It's Justin Carey, formerly known as Justice Curry, but my
Right.
YouTube channel is still Justice Curry. I
Just
don't know when if I'm going to change that.
you'll have a
It's a
hard
long story.
you'll have a hard time shaking that moniker because that's just how people know you. You know.
Exactly, and that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with having a pseudonym. And
That's right.
there's my wife, Lady
Oh,
Butler.
cool.
If she couldn't join us here today, she's at work, but
Yep.
she's usually right there,
Yeah.
which is
Oh.
awesome. I love having her there. But yeah, it is addictive behavior. You can trace it. There are things that are definite signs
Yep.
that you could connect to. And I have a similar experience like you were talking about. I worked for the Juvenile Justice Authority when I was still in Kansas. I ran a YRC2 for them, and I've seen some addictive behavior you wouldn't believe from a lot of the juveniles in there. But I know you've probably seen, God knows, in being involved in law enforcement. But it may not seem as bad, but it can be as bad. And I often think of the show Hoarders.
Yes.
Hoarders is a great example. My wife watches a lot of that show. She used to. And it's kind of interesting, though, with the Hoarders that when you watch that show, none of those people actually want any help. Just picking on the show a little bit. If you're really paying attention, they're in trouble. The code compliance is after them. The county's after them. Child Protective Services, elder care. Somebody's giving them a hard time. They don't want your help.
Yep.
And they don't really help them. They pack everything up and put it in boxes, and then they come back a year later and it's worse.
Yes.
But they have a lot of similarities, and I experienced this just recently, actually this past weekend on Sunday. Someone that my wife and I was talking to with a record collection, where they're like, this guy's got 50 cars in his backyard, and the show's arranged for someone to come and take them away for 125 a pop, and they're like, it's worth so much more once I tear those down and scrap them. And it's like, dude, they've been there for 35 years.
You're never going to
do it.
You're exactly.
Let it go. It's okay.
Yes.
And I see a lot of that in the toy community also. People got stuff they don't even want, don't care about. They say they don't care about it, and they won't let go.
Yep. And I'll dive into some of the, and I'm not a psychologist. My wife's a counselor. She did a video with me on YouTube as well, talking about the addictive behaviors of collecting and the correlations that I see. And I came from a destructive addiction of alcoholism that I've been 12 years sober now. And I kind of jumped into the collecting community shortly after it, because it was a major life change with my groups of friends that I was hanging with, my patterns of behavior with alcohol. And the first step is admitting that you have a problem. And I would always point to other people and go, well, they're the homeless guy's he's an alcoholic, not me.
Sure.
And then even as years went on and I realized I need to change, I tried on my own, and I would just slip back into the same routine after a few months or two of changing my behavior. It would always go back. And it wasn't until a miraculous moment with God of just going, hey, take this away from me. And once I surrendered it, it was gone, and I never looked back. But weeks later, I stumbled upon a show called The Toy Hunter with Jordan Hembrough. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's adult collectors. Because I used to have this in high school, and I didn't know anybody else did this. I kind of thought I had to grow up, packed it all away. So once I became sober and then I saw adults like me collecting, and I'm like, oh, this is what it's about. And I
Sure.
jumped back in hard and heavy and accumulated the collection that you see,
Hmm.
using a lot of my flipping skills. But when I buy large collections from people, they often have the same kind of mentality of, like you mentioned with the hoarders, it's
Yeah.
worth more. This toy right here is worth $100 and you're only going to give me $30 for it. And I'm going, yes, because time is more valuable than money. And when you have 1,000 different pieces, I'm buying it all. I'm not just buying one
Yeah.
thing. And you're never going to get around to, because most people have jobs and lives and whatnot. It takes a lot of energy to be a reseller and a lot of heartache and headaches. And that's why people come to me to liquidate large collections,
Sure.
is because they finally get to that point. But it's a slow process. It's a very, very slow process that sometimes people can wrap their heads around and other times they can't. And early on in my collecting career, I told myself, if I can't display it, I'm not going to own it just to own it. Because we
Yeah.
all have that completist mentality. Like, I got to have every single one. I have to
I
have,
know the feeling.
well, yes. And when you
Yeah.
have
I know
every
it.
single one, you're going to run out of space because some people don't even have this much space. And this is a small collection
Yeah.
room. And when you don't have it, you just start getting totes and totes and totes that just build up for years and you don't even know what's in it. And then sometimes they come to that realization, yep. And I always tell people, like, don't save a few pieces.
Yeah.
It's sentimental pieces from your childhood. If you're going to liquidate your collection, save a few things. And sometimes, like your hoarding show, someone sells every single thing to me, and then next thing I know, 5 years later, they're reaching back out to me and they accumulated it all again. And it's because they never got to that root problem of a
Yeah.
retail therapy or the dopamine hit every time they buy something. And just because you're a collector doesn't mean you're an addict. It's when it negatively affects your life.
Yeah.
Like if you start living in squalor, you can't pay your bills, it's
Yeah.
negatively affecting your relationships. Those are the things when it becomes a problem.
Yeah. And
And I
that's
can
like
talk.
some of the signs that you might be taking that too far, like you said, living in squalor. And I've seen that with people got, and it's just piled and there's no order, everything in its place, and every a place for everything kind of mentality. Like, we got this set up here, and we recently just pulled it all down and clean it, and we go through this regular thing where we dust and clean the whole area. But some people, they get overwhelmed and they just keep stacking and stacking, and then you end up with like a half inch of dust on everything. Something might be wrong.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
if you have to hide your purchase, it's
Mm.
like and I see a lot of memes picking on that. How much did you pay for that, or where did that come from? Oh, I found this at the thrift store. Yeah.
Yep.
Just
Oh, of course. And that's common.
yeah.
Dudes, like I ship out, 20 packages a day, and there's a few of them sprinkled in where people say, ship it to my work address. I can't let my wife see this.
Oh,
And I'm like,
see,
hey, to
if you
each
gotta,
their own.
yeah, if you gotta hide it, that there might be something there. And why would you have to hide it? Either it's overwhelming, or you really can't afford it right now.
Yep.
'Cause like you said, pay your. Are you keeping the lights on? Is the water running? Maybe you ought to
Mhm.
slow down a little bit.
Yep.
And Jay is joking. He says, "Justin, who's Justin?"
I know, because Justice Curry, it's the Batman Bruce Wayne thing.
Yeah,
People are like, what?
the mask is off. The mask is
Spider-Man
off.
Peter Parker, and it ruins his life. So
But and for those of you who do not know, Justice Curry, of course, is well known in the toy community. He goes to a lot of shows. He is a dealer slash collector who has his own big collection, but buys out lots and kind of cherry picks and then flips the excess,
yes.
which is not a bad way to go, as long as you don't end up keeping everything. Which
It's
can be,
hard, man.
yeah, I
It's
bet.
it's definitely hard. And my wife comments because my collection has leaked into the other portions of our home,
Uh-oh.
whether it's our kitchen or dining room, the kids' play area, even my son's room. On the spots that I can't fit anything, I have like expensive art pieces or one of a kind
Sure.
this. Because I'm like, he don't care what's on his wall, Minecraft poster or priceless pre-production GI Joe thing.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, there's some signs where people have to watch out for. If you're debating paying a bill, I mean, always take care of yourself first. If you have to hide it, something's not right there, or at least there's this conflict possibly within the relationship.
Yes.
That if it's interfering with the relationship, if you have a spouse who is just dead set against your collecting at all, that's a different problem. But you know,
Right.
if you got a hobby that keeps you content, why interrupt it?
Exactly.
But
And other themes that I've noticed with brand new collectors, because a brand new collector will get into it and it's just a rush. It's so much fun. You're reestablished.
yeah,
Oh, I had every GI Joe, and then they're grabbing them, but then they become completionists. So now I got to get every 1985 figure, 1987 figure, blah blah.
yeah,
And I tell people constantly, because they reach out to me after discovering one of my videos, or they realized, oh my gosh, your prices are so much cheaper than eBay.
yeah.
And I'm like, slow down. It's not a race. The fun part is acquiring it. But oftentimes guys hemorrhage $5,000, in 2 months. They get every single 1982 to 1989 figure. And then they go, what's next? What's next? What's next? What's next? And then they go to Mad Balls or Sectars or whatever 80s thing that kind of
Sure.
scratched an itch for them. And I'd say this is a marathon. This is not a race. The fun part is the slow, methodical picking up everything. But I guess to each their own.
And you can make mistakes that way too. You can overpay. You can end up with something that's messed up.
We buy the same figure.
Yeah, it may not be what you thought it was, and yeah, it can get expensive. I mean, I've got a few of those over here. If I turn some
Yeah.
bunch of Carter Joes there, they
Oh,
can get
beautiful.
expensive. A couple of those are yours.
Yeah, I believe it.
I bought.
That's awesome.
My wife and I both bought from Justice Carter. He does have good prices, folks.
Yep.
Shameless plug, but yeah, he will cut you a pretty sweet deal.
I tell people, if you can find it cheaper someplace else, I will beat it. And that's not just some kind of like, ha ha ha. I'm serious. Like, some guys want to maximize profit and they want the buy it now prices. I'm like, I want my stuff sold within 5 minutes. Someone sees my post on Facebook. Again, follow Justin Carey on Facebook.
Yeah.
They see my post and they go, I'm never going to see it this cheap again. So they buy it. And because time is more valuable. I don't have employees. I don't have this big setup. I want to go through my items as quick as possible.
And he will.
My system.
Just speaking on a personal note, he ships fast.
Yeah.
He does ship fast.
Same day.
K Munin wants to know if you collect any anime.
Personally, I don't collect. Like, I have some crossover anime-esque looking things. It's not really anime. It's kind of like what's her Edward Scissorhands, but a girl version. So that's kind of anime, but it's like my brother was big into Dragon Ball Z. I wasn't, but I have an appreciation for it.
Sure. That Kota Bukaya statue, is that what that is?
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
The other thing also, you mentioned time, and of course time is one of the most valuable things you have, and we brought up space also. From a retail perspective, space is like the biggest deal. I've worked in retail before, and people will ask sometimes, I know that question comes up, okay, it's after Halloween, it's after Christmas, why are they clearancing all that out, 75% off, whatever? They're going to buy and resell the same stuff next year. They don't have anywhere to put it.
Yes.
And that space is extremely valuable, and the space in your home is valuable too. And
I know.
You've got to control that.
You do. And I'm battling it right now with the economy being bad right now and people worried about elections and stuff. So a lot of guys are selling collections more frequently right now.
Yeah.
So my messages are blowing up constantly, and sometimes the deals are too good to be true. So I'm just like buying them, but now I'm accumulating it faster than I can sell it, and I'm going, what do I do? So I'm even looking into, because I don't want to get a storage space, but I got an acre property. I'm like, well, I could build a little outshed building and store stuff, or
You'd have to make sure it's climate control though.
Yes.
Yeah, because
Or
yeah,
store things in there that are not toys that would free up, like all my Christmas decorations, all my excess kid stuff,
sure.
that kind of stuff could go in there where then I can reuse the space for other things. Um, but it's a balance. It's always a tightrope walk with moderation. Like everyone who has a beer is not going to turn into an alcoholic,
Hmm.
but something about some people, whether it's genetics, whether it's some kind of just force they lost with, I don't know what it is, but
Yeah.
they can't control it. And they go pedal to the metal. And it's not just collecting or substance abuse. It can be women buying way too many clothes, and they're spending 15 grand a year on clothes or shoes or something like that.
Yeah.
There's different, it's all about moderation. Or food. Most of us are addicted to eating this highly addictive food and sugar and whatnot. So this language that we're speaking kind of is universal, but we're obviously dialing it into something that we hold near and dear, which is collecting.
Yes.
And a healthy habit can definitely turn into something not so healthy. And my shirt says, with the plastic crack, watch it. For those who don't, just Google it. I think it's on Amazon.
Uh,
I'm featured in it. It's amazing. You'll love it. But it says there are worse things to be addicted to.
yes.
And that's my mentality too. Like, I came from alcoholic. I'm collecting toys. There are lessers of two evils, but I've managed this one. This one's not destroying my life like the other one was.
Yeah, and we all have like an addictive behavior of some sort. It's a matter of what you're going to put your focus into, and then again, from a biblical perspective, all things in moderation.
Yes,
So you can get too much of anything.
of course.
Anything. It depends on what it is, and this can run away on people just as much as anything else does. Another thing that I've noticed also is this what they call the FOMO now, with a lot of modern stuff, the fear of
Yes,
missing out. We did a whole video on it like last year,
nice.
where people are like they see something and they're not sure, but they're afraid they won't be able to find it later. Which, by the way, it will turn up at Ollie's for like $3. But just saying, I know a lot of people who are into classifieds are pretty pissed when all those Tomax and Zamots turned up there for like
Oh,
$4
I know.
59 cents. But
Even this Mossman Origins, people are
yeah,
paying $50 a piece for it. Now you can find it at Ollie's for
yeah,
$5.
Ollie's has turned into the new KB outlet, the
Yep.
KB toy stores with the red line pricing. But they have this the FOMO sucks them in too, and they see something, because you never know. Truly, you never know. It could be that you might not find that particular one easily again, and you have to resort to aftermarket. But then for every one of those, you get 10 other things that you ended up with that you weren't sure about, and now you're looking at it like, what am I doing with this?
Yep.
And
Yep.
one of the recommendations actually that we had was, if you're not sure and you don't want to sell it, because then you could have regret later, put it away in a tote or something, wait a while, and then like next year or whenever, when you open that tote up and you look, you'll either say, wow, is that what happened to this? Or you'll say, why did I buy this thing? And then
Yeah.
you'll know it's time to get rid of it for sure.
Right, right, right. Looks like one of your guys, if you could put that on the screen, from Hank.
Okay.
He says, hey guys, what do you do when you have a very valuable item up for sale? No one wants to touch it, whether the economy is good or bad. The obvious answer is to keep it, but I still want to sell it for the money.
Uh-huh.
I mean, an item's worth, and I get in arguments constantly with people where
Sure.
they look at eBay and they go, look at this thing. It's listed for $1,000. I go, you got to look at the sold
Good
listings.
luck.
Exactly. And the sold listings are like $35 to $50. I'm making the price up, obviously, for this thing.
Sure.
Your item is not worth $1,000. And if you want to put a price tag of $75 on it, yeah, maybe someone's going to buy it in a year or two. But if you started at $1 bidding, that's what something is worth. You put it on eBay, you start it low, you see where it goes, and yeah, it might only go for $35.
Hmm.
So I'm always having these debates with people, it's worth whatever you want. It's not the buy it nows. Those guys just sit on it for years and years until some big fish that makes an impulse buy just buys it right away because they don't want to wait for a bidding one.
Yeah.
So yeah, put it on
Yeah.
eBay, find out.
Sometimes again the space isn't worth it. You know, so you just clear it out. And I've done
Yep.
that plenty of times where I'm just like, nah, you know, or we've done shows a couple of times. We also buy record lots. And because we have record players, we listen to a lot of vinyl records.
Me too. Me too.
Lots are really cheap. If you go to Facebook Marketplace or whatever, you can get records for practically nothing if you buy it in bulk. And I turned around and one of the shows we did just recently, I put them in the bin for like a quarter a piece. The extras,
Yeah.
because I'm like, you know, I didn't pay hardly anything for them. Just get rid of them, blew them out.
Yes.
Blew 'em out.
Yes.
They could have been worth more, but I don't care.
And I'm the same way when it comes to a lot of the toys. When people are like, "How are you selling it for that cheap?" And I'm like, "Because I'm not trying to maximize. I want it all gone." And
Yeah,
I love that feeling. It's a rush to me to get a good deal. So I love when people who buy from me also get to experience that, like, wow, I got a good deal from Justice. And
sure.
that's why people keep coming back. That's why my name's not ran through the mud constantly. Um, and one more point to the valuable item. If it's one of those rare, one of a kind, there's no examples on
Yeah,
eBay. Oftentimes I'll go, wow, okay, there's none on eBay and it's a pre-production. Maybe there's only one available. I'll just throw a big number on it, $1,000. No one bought it in a week. Then I'll put $800. No one buys it in a week. Then I'll put $500, and I'll just keep bringing it down until
sure.
that right person grabs it. So
Because that does happen, and I know people pester you that way a lot. They send you a message, "Hey man, you know what's this worth?" And of course, you know, take a look at completed auctions on eBay to gauge it. And true enough, though, there are certain things you won't find, you
Yep.
know, and that's a different animal altogether. But mostly, I mean, if somebody came in and they were like, "Hey, would you take this for it?" A lot of times, the way I look at it is this something I can replace?
Oh yeah.
A lot of it can be replaced. You can find
Yes.
it again, but there are certain things like it would take forever to find. And I'm like, nah, I don't know
Right.
if, like, let me see, I'll go over here real quick. People have seen these before. Those are you see, it looks like the Pillsbury Doughboy and stuff back there.
Yep.
There's product people in that lineup. I don't know how well you can see it. There we go. On top of there is the General Mills cereals monsters from product people from the 70s.
Whoa.
You can't find those in the box.
Mm-hmm.
I got the Trix Rabbit up there. It took me 15 years to find one in the box.
Wow.
And that's daily looking on eBay. And
Yep.
and you never see them at shows. They're
Mm-hmm.
really rare. Somebody offered me double what it's worth.
Yep.
I can't do it. I'll never find it.
I get it.
Yeah, but
totally
other things, and you're like, maybe I can find that again. And that's something else to consider too. Is like if it's something that you know you can replace, maybe it's okay to let it go.
Yep.
You know, if you have way too much.
And there's been super rare items that I've had. Like I had this Belgium store display Castle
I
Grayskull.
remember that.
Yes, I loved
remember
it.
that video. Yeah.
And I probably paid, $1,000 for it. And I had it for multiple years. And I just had a random person reach out to me and say, I'll give you $3,000 for it. So I was just like, man, I'll probably never replace it. But I also got to enjoy it for a
Yeah.
long time. And I know my friend who's getting it, he'll enjoy it. Plus, there's the money. Like, where am I at financially? I have certain goals that I need to reach. So there's some times where I'm like, I can pass it on. Do I have some seller's regret? Sometimes, but I got so much, it's not even, it doesn't matter. But I do want to tell one story that ties in with the collecting and addiction.
Please do.
So there was an older gentleman that reached out to me and said, hey, I got a house full, barn full of vintage toys. So I went to his house 45 minutes away. Beautiful house, like more than $500,000, $750,000 house on a lake. And I walk into this house, he lives by himself. every square inch was filled with boxes, and it was a literal hoarder's house with boxes up to the ceiling, small paths everywhere. I glanced into his bedroom. His bedroom was just filled with boxes.
Wow.
His kitchen filled with boxes, and it didn't stink in there. Luckily, there's no animals, nothing like that. But it was just living like someone should not live. He had to sleep in his lazy boy. That was his bed in the living room. It's crazy. Basement filled. So what his idea was, he was buying all this as an investment. And I hear this from collectors constantly.
Oh God,
Say,
yeah.
I'm holding on to it someday, and when I retire, it's going to be my investment. But those people that are naive, that don't understand how long it takes just to sell 100 items, not 10,000 items.
Yeah.
Like I always tell people, oh, this is investment. Sell your cheapest $100 items, right? Or cheapest 100 items, and let me show you how long and how much of a pain in that butt that's going to be. And he bought all this in the 90s. Then when it was his time to cash in, because he's like, I'm retiring, he ran into that same roadblock of, oh my goodness, individually packing this collection is not worth it. So he printed off for everything in his entire collection. He printed off a piece of paper of what's inside the box, how many's inside the box, what it's worth on eBay. But he was looking at all the current listing buy it now prices. So he had no concept of what it was actually worth. And the dude picked the wrong horses to collect. He collected starting lineup, Star Wars 1996, Power of the Force stuff. Star Wars 12-inch. He had like 4,000 Princess Leia and Hoth gear 12-inch. And I'm like, dude, I'm reluctant to almost give you a quarter a piece for these. He's like, a quarter, I need $3 a piece. He goes, look it on eBay. Look it on eBay how much it's worth. And I said, okay, there's 3 of them sold for, maybe $15 a piece.
Yeah.
Look how many are listed currently. There's 50 of them listed, and only 3 sold, and eBay keeps the records for 2 months.
Yes.
3 sold in 2 months. The demand on this item is so low that I'll be lucky to clearance them out myself for $1 a piece to other resellers. Like, I'll be super lucky to get that.
Yeah.
You have 4,000 of them. So I had to inform him. Plus, he collected Spawn, a whole garage, thousands and thousands of Spawn. And I'm like, dude, why couldn't you have collected like really Boglins or Attack of the Killer Tomatoes? Or we weren't seeing eye to eye on a lot of things. So he let me cherry pick his collection, which was good because he did keep a good some lines that were nice, like Hasbro WWF figures. Like he had 10 Undertakers, and I'm like, those are a couple $100 a piece. That's awesome. Or Earthworm Jim, he had a ton of. I filled up my car with. Toy Biz Marvel, not really good. But when you're buying them for $1 a piece, I'll find someone to pay $5 a piece.
Yeah, those are still for really affordable. The Toy Biz stuff.
Mm-hmm. So the time factor of keep as a nest egg, I don't think is a really good valuable. And plus, you got to know when to pull the parachute. I've used this story 8 million times, and I'm sorry if you have already heard it.
You're okay.
When I went to a toy show, there's an old man selling just 12-inch GI Joes, and I was wearing a GI Joe shirt.
Yeah.
And he goes, young man, I take it you collect the 80s and 90s G.I. Joe. I said, yes. He goes, know when to pull the parachute. I go, what are you talking about? He goes, look at that 12-inch G.I. Joe over there. Back in the 90s, I could get $500 for it. Mm-hmm. He's like, right now, I'm lucky to get $50 for it. He's like, my generation is dying, and it's a supply and demand. When my generation dies, the demand goes down, and all their kids throw it on eBay, the supply goes up. And that makes all the prices drop. So he said, your 3 3/4 figures, once you start hitting your late 50s, 60s, and your generation starts going downhill and all your kids are throwing it up on eBay, he's like, this stuff, your $800 snake eyes might be only worth $200. And most of us don't think about that. It's in the back of our mind. We collect not because of the value of it. We collect because of the love for it. But if you're collecting for the value of it, you got to take that in consideration too. It's not your nest egg at the end of your life.
Yeah, and to be fair with the Spawn, I was thinking about that back when those figures were first coming out, and McFarlane Toys was pulling the okey doke with artificial demand by messing up the colors on certain figures by accident.
Oh, that's
Because
so funny.
yeah, by accident, because he claimed, oh, the factory made a mistake because they didn't understand what color we told them. You send them a plate, they can copy the color. It's not like a mistranslation, McFarlane. We're not silly.
Yeah.
But they were getting big money at that time. Like the Malbolgia, I think you could get like $120 for in the 90s. Now now it's like what, $15 on the card?
$15 easy.
Yeah. You know what I mean? I
Yep.
remember that. Or the toy Playmates Star Trek, the serial numbers stamped on the feet, remember? Because numbers under 10,000 had color variations, and they did that with all of they did it with Sequest, and they did it with Skeleton Warriors and all those figures. And numbers below 10,000 were getting crazy nutso premium prices on eBay at the time. Where are they now? They're all sitting in the bins underneath the tables. You can't get 3 for $5.
Isn't that funny? I know.
It's died. Oh, I don't know if you ever saw. I pulled them off. That's
wow.
That's the product people Tricks Rabbit, and it's just it's a vinyl squeak toy. It's like you put it in the bathtub and he squeaks. But
whoa!
And
how cool is that?
In the box, it's impossible. Some of these are possible. You see, there's a Charlie Tuna. That's wave 1. There were 2 waves, but the General Mills wave is the hardest to find, still packaged. And it took forever to find this one. But you know,
that's part of the hunt. And that feeling when you acquired it, I bet you that rush was probably the same like doing heroin. You're just like, yeah, I felt good.
If you ever happen to come across Frankenberry in the box, let me know, because that's the only one I have left in the whole run. That Frankenberry, which I missed last year on eBay because the prices went nuts. Certain things, the prices go crazy. Like I'm missing Uncle Raleigh from the Pillsbury Doughboy set. Uncle Raleigh mint in the box with his little car will run you $3,000. You know, once it goes into the thousands, and it's like, I can't bid on this anymore. No.
It's very rare that I spend that kind of money. Like I mentioned, I bought that Castle Grayskull store display for $1,000.
Yeah,
but that is an oddity. I hardly ever get to those kind of numbers. But that was similar to your Tricks Rabbit. I had been looking for that for so many years, saved eBay, constantly checking. None ever came up, over and over and over, years and years. So when one did finally come up, I'm like, I can't hesitate, and I did it.
And one of the examples I was thinking of, I brought this up at the very beginning. This past weekend, and it was on Sunday, and we were at the flea market, my wife and I, and just looking, and she had found a couple of vinyl records, so they were 75% off at a booth at the antique mall, because it's connected to the flea market out here at the Peddlers. And in case anyone in Georgia is keeping track, because I know somebody's going to ask sooner or later. And somebody comes up and he says, "Hey, you guys collect vinyl records?" And we were like, "Yeah, sure." And we've had people come up to us like that before in places like that and just ask us, "Oh, do you buy comics?" And he says, "I've got this stack of vinyl records. I've got about 160 of them, kind of rock stuff from the 80s that I got in a lot more than 20 years ago. Okay. With other stuff I was buying, some comics and things, and I don't listen to vinyl, and they just been sitting there in the cases, and I'm trying to get rid of them." And he's pitching, "Hey, would you be?" "Yeah, sure, we'd be interested. We'll take a look at it." And then it comes out, what do you think that's worth? And it's like, well, sight unseen, guys. You think grading with comics is a pain in the butt. I know. So Vinyl records, you got to grade the album and the jacket
Yeah.
separately, and then
Right.
it's what pressing, what country was it pressed
Oh,
in? It goes on and on. I've seen people with that'll collect like one version of an album, like they'll get the Beatles' Yellow Submarine, and they'll have like 48 different variations of the album, and they're
yeah.
all vintage, not
Oh,
even
wow.
modern ones, you know. But it's like, you know, there's a lot to factor. So when it's just sight unseen, a block of records, you know, look on Facebook Marketplace, pull out your phone, and you know, just look record lot and see. It wouldn't be a lot. 160 albums. A dealer would probably pay him 50 cents a piece. You
Yep.
know, we might pay him $1. You
Yep.
know, and he's like, well, I don't know. And here it comes, right? I don't know. And you know, I'd rather try to piece it out and see what I can do. Dude, you've had 20 years to piece it out.
Exactly.
You're
I
not
normally give them my card, and
yeah,
6 months later, they reach back out to me after they
yeah,
try to piece it out and go, "This is a nightmare."
it is. And especially with something like that, sight unseen, nobody's going to take it seriously. What pressing is it? What country was it pressed in? Is it a error cover? How's the condition of the vinyl versus the condition of the jacket? You said you don't even have a record player. You can't even check these to
Yep.
see if they, because it looked perfectly fine, and you run it on a record player and it sounds terrible.
Of course.
You know,
And yes, and with sight unseen, and people tell me, how much is this all worth? Or oftentimes that's how the conversation starts when someone's trying to sell me the collection. They take a bunch of pictures, and early Justice Curry would spend hours and hours and hours pricing it, and then say, well, I think it's worth this. This is what I can give you.
yeah,
And then they would turn around and find another me that would give them $200 more on a $10,000 deal. And I'm like, I just wasted all this time.
yeah,
So I've learned to listen, this is
let it
kind of
go.
how I do it. This is the percentages I do it. You need to do the homework on figuring out what you want for it, because that is a long process that I just don't have days and days to price people's collections for them, because probably only 1 out of 3 people end up, because a lot of people get real close to wanting to sell, and then it gets scary, and then they just back up and go, I'm not ready yet. And I'm like, that's fine,
Fine.
but I just don't want to waste my precious time.
Robert there wants to know how where you stand new versus vintage.
Well, I mentioned the marathon sprinting analogy, and sometimes when you get done with the marathon of collecting vintage, like I did, I set goals. I want every single GI Joe loose. I want them then on card. Then I go to He-Man. Then I go to Muscleman. Then I go to blah, 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 blah. So you get all of them, and you don't just stop. Now, I used to be the guy that said, I would, early videos of me, I would go, I don't have no modern in my collection. I got vintage running through my veins. Modern. Bleh. But then the new me comes out, and I'm like, I got all the vintage. So then I start looking around at the modern people are posting, and I'm like, well, I love the vintage slash.
Yeah.
This freaking modern one looks awesome. So it sucks me in because I need another rabbit hole to go down and chase. So for the completionist out there that go, I need every single rendition of all the He-Man figures, I feel sorry for you, because there's too many. They just keep they're pumping them out left and right, and all the merchandise. Like my buddy Motu Joe, he gets all the He-Man merchandise, and I mean,
Yeah.
non-stop it comes out.
I know,
But
he even gets the digital ones, right?
yeah, now he's getting into digital ones. I'm like, that's a frontier I never thought someone would
we've
try.
talked to him before too.
Yeah,
We've talked to him before too. He's really deep into the Motu for
yes,
sure.
He definitely loves it. He definitely loves it.
Hence the moniker.
So I love vintage. That's where my heart is. I have appreciation for modern. I obviously still buy it. I collect it. But you just have, you do you. No collector is exactly the same, and there's no right or wrong way to do it. You do you. And we're obviously talking about a heavy topic with addictiveness.
Yes.
And if you start noticing some of these addictive qualities that we're talking about, or you deep down realize I got a problem, then this video might help you take the first step of like, I do have a problem. Like the old alcoholics. You stand up, hey, I'm Justin, I'm an alcoholic. And you go, hey, yeah,
Hi,
I got a
Justin.
problem. Yeah, hi, Justin, everyone clap for you. Then you need to seek professional help, because you trying to battle it yourself, if you have a real hardcore addiction problem
Yeah.
with collecting or whatever it is, alcohol, pills, what have you, your addiction is destroying your life, then not these help videos online are going to help you. I mentioned what did it for me was
Yes.
my relationship with God, but that might not be you. You might need to go to support groups or counseling. My wife's a therapist. She helps people with negative addicting behaviors. And any counselor is also going to be able to help you with some of these patterns or set budgets or what have you to get you out of this negative collecting and get you into a more healthy version of it. So,
Yeah, another one to watch out for is the gotta have it's, and I've seen this a lot at conventions, and also people who go on toy hunts where they're running around all over town to every Target looking for something,
yep.
and they've been to 5, 6 different Targets, and it's like, okay, how much time, fuel, and did you have to get lunch? How much is actually invested in this figure? If you find it, it will end up costing you $80 instead of 26.
Yep.
Or you went to a convention, and I see this a lot at shows where people, because we film a lot of shows and we do the showcases on this channel, that they go to the show and they've got it in their minds. It's like, I've got to find something. Whatever they thought they were looking for isn't there, which you're never going to find it if you're looking for it. It's got to be a target of opportunity. If we're being
Yeah.
honest, mostly it's
Yeah.
target of opportunity. But you go to the show and there's nothing there for you, and you're like, I drove 4 hours. I had lunch. I've got to pay gas both way. I paid to get in the show. I'm leaving with something.
Right.
You know what? You don't have to.
Yeah.
You don't have to force yourself to buy something that maybe later on you might regret that you purchased it, just to buy something to justify the fact that you were there. And
Exactly.
I see that a lot. I
I
see
do too.
a lot of
That's a common thing. Yep. They want to. Well, I think a lot of it has to do with having a memory attached to your event. So you come home and I look around my collection and I can kind of tell you, oh, I remember who I got that from. I remember going to that toy show. I remember meeting this guy at lunch and he hooked me up with this childhood figure and there was a story behind it. Or my friend who passed away gave that toy to me because that was his childhood toy. So there's a lot of memories. So maybe they want a memory, or maybe it's just like what you said. They got money burning a hole in their pocket. So
yeah.
we got to spend it on something. And if you do that, spend it on something cheap, $5 for the memory instead of, 50 or 100.
Yeah, and the shows know this. That's why a lot of shows have a show exclusive.
Yep.
They have a show exclusive. JG says when it becomes a problem, the hobby isn't fun anymore.
And I've heard this so many times with private conversations between a lot of people. And it's kind of weird for me to even be talking about this because it's almost like McDonald's saying, hey, my food's not healthy for you. I'm
Yeah,
a toy hustler. I make money selling toys. But what's more important to me is the mental well-being of people, whether it's my toy collecting friends, people who buy from me. And if they see this video, yeah, they might not buy from me next time because they're realizing, uh-oh, I got a problem. But that's more important than the
sure.
money it is to me. And it's a weird dynamic because most of the time people can tell this ain't fun no more. Like I don't even know what I own. And I've been to other old men that have storage units and they've opened it up and they kind of did the same thing as the record guy was doing. Like, well, this might be worth this, or I need to match this up. And I'm like, dude, you got a layer of dust this big on it. You haven't opened this unit in 20 years.
Oh
Like,
wow.
you're never going to get around to it. And another story that's about that specific scenario, again, a 70-year-old guy collected all Star Wars, Alien, like he had every awesome thing that you can imagine in a storage unit, giant layer of dust. But it was almost impossible to buy from him because he had that mentality of, I need to match it up. I need to maximize profit. Luckily, I was able to get a big pile of some really, really special things, but I probably only bought a quarter of the unit. And I kept hounding him for months and months and months. And I learned later that he stopped payment on a storage unit,
Oh,
and it
there
all
it
went to
is.
auction or was thrown out. And I'm like, dude, come on, man.
Yeah, some other guy ended up with that unit when they auctioned the units off after the
Yeah.
fact, which
Oh,
that used to be a bigger thing before the Storage Wars shows, which kind of ruined
yep.
that for people, because it used to be you could get a storage unit for 10-15 bucks at
Yeah.
at an auction, and now it's hundreds, thousands for units, and
A
then you end up
chance.
yeah, and you end up with like Christmas ornaments and lawn furniture. But yeah, that show really ruined it. I saw an interview with one of the guys from it that said, "Yeah, it ruined my business because that's what I used to do for a living, and now it's like I can't even afford to bid on the damn units anymore."
Yep.
But yeah, and
That
that's
happened during COVID too, with Facebook Marketplace.
yeah,
Everyone became a reseller, and all these awesome lots that would come out were gone within 30 seconds. I'm like, what?
but yeah, if you've got storage units and you can't manage them, that's a problem. You
Yep.
know, it's you shouldn't have more than you could get because that's an additional expense. That's
Of
an
course.
additional expense. And then there's other factors to consider about the safety of the storage unit. Is it climate controlled? Because the expansion and contraction of temperature changes will destroy this stuff.
Yes.
There could be pests in there.
Big time.
If there's a flood, anyone who has a storage unit, get some risers, you know, or else if there's a flood, you're going to ruin everything you got. You know,
Oh,
there's a lot of factors there. But yeah, if you're renting out units and you're like, oh, I've got a unit, well, now I need a bigger one or I need two. Slow down.
you're right.
Yeah, that could be a sign that something's wrong. Jay
Mhm.
has a question there about Wonder Bread He-Man.
As far as variations, I'm not familiar with any variations of that Wonder Bread. And I get specialized questions day in and day out about toy lines. Like, I know a little about a lot of things. Like, I can't
Sure.
be experts on every single thing. I know G.I. Joe pretty well. I know He-Man pretty well. But when it comes to like foreign Argentina paint variation, I'm like, I know that there's an Argentina Stratos,
Yeah.
but I don't know about the 5 different variations of things. And I always tell people, like, go to one of the big Facebook groups like Motu Nation, post your question there. You're going to have people with more specialized knowledge that'll be able to help you out on that.
It's hard enough keeping up with the American variations. I
Oh,
mean,
I know.
I mean, seriously. And Robert's picking on me there. He says maybe you can take some of my cats. Well,
Yeah, I got 2 cats wandering around right now, and I know you guys are
yeah,
cat
well, we
people
were working
yourself.
as a proxy, and the person that we were working with that has an animal shelter got sick, had surgery, and they just can't help us now. So we had to look for someone else, but we had 20 because we were fostering a couple, and we had some kittens we were working with, but we're just starting to get them moving again
Yep.
because that's more than we can manage, and that's a problem too. I don't want that to turn into an addiction. How many cats can we take care of? Probably 10 or 12 is our limit, you know, because we have outdoor habitats. But then 20, that's too much. You know, we need to sort that because you've seen animal hoarders too, I'm sure.
Of course, yes. Here's an interesting question by Black Knight.
Okay, let me catch him up. There he is. And Black Knight has a channel, by the way, too, if anyone's interested.
Nice. Says, hey, David, some people say toxic toy community and figure swapping ruin the joy of collecting.
Uh-huh.
Now, we probably could make a list of 250 negative aspects of toy collecting, probably way longer than 250. And there's
Sure.
not any one thing out of that that can just blanket ruin something that's special to you. And you just have to learn how to go, hey, any hobby, whether it's sports or what have you, we're talking about toy collecting, there's
Mhm.
going to be negative aspects to it or toxic personalities
Yeah.
to that. and my block list is probably up to 800 people now. It's crazy. I have to block people constantly because when you have a lot of eyeballs on you, if you have 1,000 people watch a video, chances are 3 of those people are going to have some other things going on, and they're going to take it out on you, whether it's one of the 1,000 of opinions in there that you gave, and then it's pitchforks and torches wanting to come after you. And I'm like, I don't have time to battle people. So block, 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 block. So if you, and some of it's entertaining, you know, I'll go into one of the groups and I'll see a dumpster fire thread of 200 comments and people arguing back and forth. And you see all the memes of someone eating popcorn. I mean, yes, it's entertaining, but a lot of those people aren't trying to be entertaining. They got chaos in their mind. And if you invite that chaos into your life, they're going to ruin your life too. So toxic toy community as a whole, 90% of them's good.
Yeah.
The 10% of the knuckleheads, shift them out of there. And then figure swapping. I mean, is it possible? Yes. Is it probable? No. It's going to happen a little bit, but probably not that often. It's not often to be concerned about.
Yeah, because I've seen showcases of that too. People put it on the video because and just for in case anybody's not sure, you order a figure, say from Walmart.com, you take that figure out, you put some piece of crap in there, return it. They don't check anything. Right. It ends up on the shelf in the store, and so now you've got a Marvel Legends box with a Lord of the Rings Frodo figure in there or something like that. And this is part of the reason why a lot of people were really pissed at Hasbro for doing closed boxes, which they reverted back to because it did hurt them. People weren't buying those figures. But yeah, that's kind of what a lot of that is. And I don't think there's a lot of that going on, but there are people who do it, of course.
It's sporadic. I mean, maybe 1 out of 100 figures you're going to encounter some figure swapping, but then you just take it back, get your money back, and go, I got a story out of it. Keep a list. See how many times you run into it.
My favorite story about that, though, was in a Target when New Mego first came back. And, they did the Fonzie figure.
Yep.
And there was 6 or 7 of them hanging on the peg. And every one of them had been split open and somebody stole the combs out of them.
Oh, my goodness.
I should have filmed I should have filmed it with my cell phone. I didn't think of it at the time. And I was like, that is nuts. Who the hell stole all of these combs?
I know. It's crazy. And I've known. I don't even want to tell that story. That's a bad story. Let's just say when you know a lot of people, and I know thousands and thousands of people, sometimes some of those people are going to do things that surprise you. And you're like, whoa, oh my gosh, I've talked with this person many times. And then they, do something crazy like that or get caught doing it. And you're like,
Yeah, you never know. Like that one story from last year about the guy who stole the missile firing Boba Fett.
Oh my God!
From his friend at the what is it, the Mos Eisley Museum or whatever he calls it? I forget what he calls that place. That guy has like the world's biggest Star Wars toy collection. And been volunteering there for years, and it's like, I can just imagine.
That's horrible.
Oh, that's right. Now, my wife reminding me. Happened to David. He ordered a figure from Amazon. It was the wrong figure. What happened was it was supposed to be mint sealed new Mezco Frank Castle Punisher, right? And everything looked good, but when I opened it up, it was the Frank Castle head on the Mezco Frankenstein body.
What?
I did a video on it like a couple of years ago.
Oh, that's hilarious.
I called it Frankencastle.
Frankencastle.
I got hosed. I had to return it to Amazon. And the sad part about that is I sent the return in, and regardless of my explanation, that sucker went right back on the shelf.
Of course.
Somebody else got it.
Yep. Oh my goodness.
Who does that? It was supposed to be mint sealed. But yeah, people I think that's about the only time that happened to me. That's about
I gotta get going here in a moment. Okay. I had an hour, but I love talking with you. This is a blast. And it goes by so quick when you're having fun. It just
It
goes,
does.
because I could talk for 3 hours and just, it's fun.
But yeah, we appreciate it. And again, talking about the addictive behaviors and some signs that that maybe you need to slow it down if you've lost track of what you have. You can't display it carefully. And I know some people don't have a lot of space. Do the best you can with your space, but don't overwhelm yourself. You don't need the collection in your bathroom and kitchen. And I've seen that in videos, especially with Funko Pops. That
Oh yeah.
fun, on the platform of the toilet, it's 10 high. Like, dude, you need to slow down. Take it easy, buddy. But you can't take proper care of it. Um, you can't pay your bills. It's taking up all your time. You're not happy with it. It's not filling that sweet spot anymore. Did I miss anything?
Your loved ones are
Oh
concerned
yeah,
about
it's affecting your relationship
it.
in a
Yes.
negative way. Things like that, things to think about. And thank you, JG. JG made a donation to the channel. Much appreciated. Goes a long way to helping us with our shelter cats. Believe it. That's where most of that goes when people help the channel out. So thank you, JG, again. But yeah, that being said, thanks for joining us this afternoon, Justice.
Of
Appreciate it.
course.
We'll have to have you on again sometime soon.
Anytime, man. Anytime.
And thank you to everyone else who was able to join us here today. Hope you got something out of the conversation.